Hi, this is Stephanie from Culture Media, and sorry about that delay. We had a missing panelist. Anyway, we're here to talk about Hook's cheese. Hopefully you guys all have your cheese out in front of you. We are going to be tasting it today, so please hold off on gobbling it all like I have for the last 10 minutes with worry. And a little some information that we would like you to follow if possible. There is a Q&A button on your screen. Please post your questions there. That way I have all the questions and I will be posing them to Molly and Tony as it goes along, or we will be saving some to the end. And if we don't get to all your questions, I'm sure that Tony will be happy to answer them for you at a later date. So with that, here is Molly Browne, the Sherpa of Wisconsin Cheese, and she's going to take us through this presentation. Hi, Molly.
Hey, hello everybody. I just clicked on the list of attendees, so even though I can't see your faces right now, I can see your names, and it is so great to see everybody here today. So I just wanted to say thank you guys so much for coming. Wisconsin Cheese loves to participate in these virtual counterculture events, although I think probably like the rest of you, while we appreciate being able to reach a broader audience virtually, we do really miss seeing our friends in cheese, as we would have probably all been sick of seeing each other at this point in the year, right? But it's great to be able to get together virtually nonetheless. So my name is Molly Browne. I'm the education manager for the Dairy Farmers of Wisconsin. We are a nonprofit in Wisconsin that is funded 100% by the dairy farmers of the state. And our mission is to support the promotion and marketing of Wisconsin cheese throughout the country and the world. So you guys probably have heard of Wisconsin cheese's reputation. I don't think I need to tell you too much there, but one of the things that kind of sets us apart from other dairy producing states in the country is that 90% of our fluid milk here gets turned into cheese. So that's like very lucky for me, I think, and for all the rest of us who love Wisconsin cheese. And 90% of that cheese is sold outside of our state's borders. So we really rely on our networks outside of the state with retailers like y'all across the country to get out and tell the stories of Wisconsin cheese, share all of that great knowledge that you guys have accumulated throughout your careers, and really help us spread the word of Wisconsin cheese out there. So it's one of the reasons we love to do these virtual events. So today we have a really special event to share with you guys. We have Tony Hook of Hook's Cheese here in Wisconsin. He is a legacy cheesemaker in our state. He is best known for his world-class award-winning Colby cheese. He'll tell you a little bit of the backstory of that and some important awards that cheese has won. And he's become really well known over the last little while for his super aged cheddars. So he's included some awesome cheeses for you guys to taste today, including his 15-year cheddar. So I don't know about you guys, but I've never even tasted a 15-year cheddar. I think 10 is where my palate has maxed out in the past. So I'm super excited to taste these cheeses and to hear from Tony, hear his story and his words. So he and I got together about a week ago and chatted through a bunch of stuff. And I think that you guys will be as fascinated by his story as I have been. And we're really excited to share that with you today. So like Stephanie mentioned, there is going to be a formal tasting component to our session today. So if feel free to have a nibble here and there if you need to. I understand it's very difficult to sit next to a huge plate of cheese and not touch any of it. If you need to take a nibble here or there, feel free, but we will have sort of a more, formal tasting portion here in a little bit. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tony Hook.
Thank you, Molly. Thank you to the Dairy Farmers of Wisconsin for sponsoring this, and thank you to Culture for putting this on. As Molly said, I am Tony Hook, Hook's Cheese Company, Mineral Point, Wisconsin. We make cheese in 150-year-old building in Mineral Point. It was built in 1875. It was originally built as a livery stable and was a few things over the years, and was converted to a cheese factory in 1929 when there were 3 other cheese factories within the city limits of Mineral Point. At that time, around 1930, there were 3,200 cheese factories in the state of Wisconsin. Now I believe there are about 125 producing a lot more cheese. But back then there wasn't much very good transportation, so the farmers had to haul their milk to the nearest factory. I started making cheese in 1970 in Barneveld. I grew up just outside of Barneveld, a small town in Wisconsin. And I started working at Barneveld Cheese Company when I graduated from high school. Worked there when I was going to college. I worked for Bill Einach, a Swiss cheesemaker, and apprenticed under him for a couple of years and got my cheesemaker's license. In Wisconsin, you can apprentice to get your cheesemaker's license. These days, you can also take some short courses and shorten the apprenticeship. But every vat of cheese in Wisconsin is presided over by a licensed Wisconsin cheesemaker. So I got my cheesemaker's license in 1972 and worked for Bill for a few more years. And then my wife and I, Julie and I, moved down to Mineral Point, took over a small cooperative cheese factory called Buck Grove in 1976. We had 10 farmers at that time, and we'll get into this a little bit later when I talk with Molly, but I'm still getting milk from the same farms we were then. Of course, we're down a few generations. One farm, I think we're 4 generations into it since I've been there. But we'll discuss that a little bit later. We started managing Buck Grove Co-op in '76. We were making mainly cheddar cheese for Borden's at the time. That was cheese that was being aged by them for about a year. At that time, there weren't very many places aging any cheddar beyond 1 to 2 years. But Borden's was selling some 1-year-old. We were part of that group making for them. In 1980, we started making for some other distributors, and we started making more Colby, Monterey Jack, some Baby Swiss. And in 1982, we entered 2 blocks of Colby in the World Championship put on by the Wisconsin Cheesemakers Association. 1 block out of 1 vat was in my name, and 1 block out of another vat was in my wife Julie's name. Julie's won first in its class, best of class, and then they judged best of class against each other for overall best of show. Julie's won the World Championship that year, and she was the only woman then up till then to win the World Championship, and she is up until now as an individual woman. In 2016, when Emmy Roth won, they entered their cheese as team Emmy Roth. I'm sure that there was probably some women on the team, and we still do that now too. We enter our cheeses as Team Hook, but at that time, for an individual, she was the only woman to win it. We kind of grew our Colby business from there, and by 1987, we outgrew the small Buck Grove cooperative plant. Plus, the pasteurizer regulations were being upgraded at the time, and the farmers didn't want to spend the money to put in a new pasteurizer. So we purchased the plant that we're in right now. It was sitting idle for a few months, and Julie and I bought it as Hook's Cheese Company Incorporated, and the farmers closed the co-op and all came in to the facility we're making cheese in now. So in '87, when we took over the plant in town, we decided that the cold storage was larger than we figured we would utilize for what we were manufacturing at the time. And we decided we'd get into making some cheddars for aging beyond the normal 1 to 2 years. We thought maybe we'd expand to 5 years, kind of blow it out of the water. Of course, nowadays that's nothing. From there, we went to 7, 8, 10, 12, 15, and we have, after this year, released 2 different batches of 20-year cheddar. So I don't know if there's any limit, but at this time, we've hit 20-year. So we were making cheddars, Colby, Monterey Jack, baby Swiss, a little bit of Swiss, some other specialty items, and selling mainly to distributors that were cutting it and packaging it and selling it to stores for packaging under their own brand, or some of these distributors label it as their own. So at that time, only about 3% to 5% of the product we were producing was going under our own Hooks label. In 1994, we started selling our cheeses at the Dane County Farmers Market in Madison on the Capitol Square. And our Colby and some of our aged cheddars were one of our niches, but by 97, we decided we wanted to have something else. So we started making blue cheese. 97, we started making our original blue, a Danish style blue that we typically age over a year. Most places don't age their blues more than 3 to 6 months. We just feel that the blue has a more distinct, a better flavor at a year old or older. From there, we went on. In 2001, we started making a Gorgonzola. In 2004, we added a double cream blue called Blue Paradise. In 2004, we also added a wash dry blue, Tilston Point, kind of a play on the word Stilton, sort of similar to a Stilton. And 2009, we started dealing with a local sheep milk farmer, Brenda Jensen, and started making a sheep milk blue, Little Boy Blue. 2011, we started dealing with a local goat milk producer and started making Barneville Blue. And in 2013, we started making a mixed milk blue called You Calf to Be Kidding. I believe everybody got a sample of that, so we'll try that later. In 2014, we started making a mixed milk, more, let's say, of an alpine style, triple play. It's actually got 3 different starter cultures, 3 different milks. It's a lot drier, but it has a very unique flavor. And 2015 into 2016, we were aging more of that, so we started selling the triple play extra innings, which is the age version, usually aged about 18 to 24 months. I believe you've also got a sample of that we'll try later. So we were making, from 87 until 2001, we were making big vats of cheese. Typically, it was just Julie and I. We were making 40,000 pound vats and making 40-pound blocks and shipping it to distributors, like I said earlier, going under somebody else's label. 2001, we decided we were going to cut back and sort of semi-retire, slow down a little bit, had everything paid off, the kids were through college, and so we just figured we'd start selling to specialty stores that we were already dealing with and kind of grow that, plus the Dane County farmers markets and the chefs that we had made contact with in this area and many other areas. And from there, with the help of Dairy Farmers of Wisconsin, called the Wisconsin Milk Marketing Board at that time, and Wisconsin Department of Agriculture Dairy Business Innovation Center, they kept pushing small artisan cheese producers. And from there, we've grown to where our sales are probably almost 3 times as much as when we were running full time just producing cheese. Now we can make a little bit more profit on this type, and we ship it out under, everything goes out under the Hooks label. The 40-pound blocks are usually cut up into 5-pounders, 1-pounders, 8-ounces. We ship to a lot of small specialty distributors across the country that get into a lot of small specialty shops. So that's worked very well for us. During that time, from starting in 2008, I hired my brother. He had just retired from the Army after 25 years. He started working for me, and then in 2010, my sister started working for me. 2013, one of my nephews started working for us. 2015, one of my nieces started working for us. 2017, another nephew, and just about a week ago, another nephew. So we keep adding Hooks to the Hooks brand. So if you come in our plant, which won't happen probably for another year, but when COVID's hopefully by the wayside a little bit, anybody you meet will be a family member. So how are we doing on time here?
We're doing all right, given the delay, but I do think we might want to pop over to our tasting section. I can basically feel everybody's appetites weighing on me. So
That's right. That's right.
yeah, I think we can move into that section, and then I see some good questions coming through in the Q&A, and I've got some questions for Tony, and Stephanie may have some questions for Tony. So I know we're certainly eager to get to that point.
Good.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody else made themselves a cheese board, but I made myself a festive little cheese board for the. Sorry about that, but I did my best today. So yeah, I think Tony, if you could sort of guide us through. We've got 4 of your awesome cheeses. I've got some of my own little like pairings that I did. Folks in the audience, we love to hear what you're pairing with these cheeses. So please feel free to enter any of the details of things that you're tasting today, or your tasting notes, your general impressions of the cheese into the chat as well for everybody to see. That would be great. We love to get that feedback.
So we're starting with the Colby, milder cheese compared to all the rest. That's our world champion cheese. One thing most of you probably already know about Colby, but it's a washed curd cheese. So typically Colby, when you would cut into a 40-pound block back in the day, you'd see a lot of tiny openings. Nowadays, most of us use a multi-vac to seal the 40-pound block. So it sucks quite a big vacuum on that just to suck the air out. So that kind of tightens up those small holes in the Colby. But if you take your piece of cheese, typically I tell people when they're cutting cheese, let it come to room temperature or almost, and cut it with a wire, especially things that are aged, because they won't crumble as much. But with Colby, I always recommend cutting it with a knife, even a serrated knife, because when you do that, it actually drags the openings back open again. They're still there. They've just kind of been pulled a little bit closed. So typically, when you cut it like that, the Colby will open up again. But Colby is, more of a mild cheese, typically eaten between a couple weeks to 3 or 4 months.
Like a good, like standard table cheese, You can
right.
Eat it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Goes with almost anything.
Mm-hmm. Well, I paired mine today with some Newski summer sausage, which is like my deepest, guiltiest pleasure in life. I love that stuff. It's so good. And I also haven't eaten lunch today yet. So this is like a very good substitute for lunch, for an actual. So I always say, you know, what grows together goes together. Newski's is a fantastic Wisconsin meat company. They make an awesome summer sausage, and it goes really, really well with the Colby. Nice and savory, but with like that mild cheese component in there too. It's just really nice. And that is a great tip about the serrated knife. I did not know that.
Yep, yep. One of those oddities, you know, most people, if they do use a wire, they cut everything with a wire, but that's one cheese you want to cut with a knife. And we do make another type of cheese very similar called red Arago. That's actually got sheep and cow. And that one we actually typically age over a year. And it's got a nice, still got a nice smooth flavor. It's got a little sheep and a little cow, and the same type of thing when you slice it. But with the sheep milk in there, you get a little more sweetness, so it ages a little better.
Very nice. Now, in terms of like the history of Colby, do you know like what drove them to start washing the curd?
I don't know the exact reason. I know it was like 1885 or something up in Colby, Wisconsin. The first vat of Colby was made, and I've never really heard the reason they tested that out. Whether they had tried something, and you know, sometimes if your curd gets a little too dry, or let's say, you know, there's different applications. Let's say your power goes out for an hour, you don't have a generator and you can't drain the whey and things like that. You know, different types of cheese, like a cheddar, you may want to add salt just to slow the starter culture down. Maybe this was something they thought, well, if we wash it with water, maybe that'll slow it down a little bit, and they came up with something, you know, that, or it could have just been an accident. You never know for sure. But it worked out pretty good.
Yeah, I was wondering if it, and I'm trying to do more research on it. So that's partially why I asked, because I thought, oh, maybe Tony's got all the answers.
Yeah, I don't. I wish I did.
I was wondering if it was, you know, there's a lot of Gouda made in our state and a lot of Dutch immigrants. So I was wondering, you know, Gouda is traditionally a wash curd cheese. So if it was almost like a, you know,
right,
hey,
right.
You know, let's try this old, you know, technique on this new style of cheese and kind of see where we go. But yeah, I know for whatever reason, you know, Colby is a true Wisconsin original. It was invented here in our state. And for whatever reason, this, you know, really mild buttery style of cheese just really caught on here. I believe it was invented in, I think it was the 1870s. I'd have to go back and check my notes. It's quite an old style of cheese that's made here in Wisconsin. And yeah, obviously, you know, it's Coco, my 3-year-old's very favorite cheese in the whole world. So it's got staying power. Awesome. So we've had some great comments here in the chat. We've got, let's see, there's somebody who says that Colby tastes and smells like buttered popcorn. Definitely agree with that. It's got definitely those, you know, really buttery notes to it. Love that. Paired with walnuts. That sounds like a very good pairing. Summer sausage and Colby equal Wisconsin. Yes, 100%.
We also have Colby and warm toast with apples.
Yes.
Sounds like breakfast.
Yeah.
Colby with a soft Bavarian pretzel with the summer sausage dipped in beer, and then
then you got all of Wisconsin
with the cheese hat on.
Oh, of course.
Awesome. So next up, are we tasting the triple play extra innings?
Yes. So I had mentioned earlier that triple play extra innings is the age version of the triple play. Now, as you can see with some of the names of our cheeses, we have to come up with something fun or funny, or, you know, this one, you can see the little animals on the label have little baseball caps, and, you know, kind of deals with the baseball theme, triple play and the extra innings. So when we do make a new cheese, we'll usually put a name in a hat, everybody kind of tosses one in. And like I told Molly last week, my name for this cheese was Triple Threat, and my brother's name was Triple Play. And my son said to me, Dad, Threat isn't a good name for a cheese. So we didn't go with that one. We went with Triple Play. But the Triple Play itself is, it's 3 different starter cultures, 3 different milks. So you get a lot of different flavors in there. And when it's milder, the Triple Play, 3 to 4 months, usually you get a little bit of baby Swiss, a little bit of Havarti, a little bit of cheddar, a little bit of Gouda. As it gets older, it seems to get more of the aged Gouda flavor to it. And once it gets past about a year, it starts getting the crystals in it. So when you try this, your slice will probably have some crystals.
We're getting a little bit of feedback on the line here. I'm not sure what's going on there, but I'm going to put my hands up so I know it's not me.
I mean,
I don't know if it's me or not. Hopefully not.
It sounds like it's cleared up now. This cheese is awesome. I really love this. I could not resist. I paired it with Cracker Jacks because it was just like, what more, extra that's Cracker Jacks. And not only is it, kind of a punny pairing, but it's also a very delicious pairing. So, this cheese is just like has such a robust flavor profile. I get so much kind of like sweet and savory mixing in there anyways that the Cracker Jacks really pulls out those kind of like butterscotchy, sweeter notes to it and just plays a really nice counterpoint to the cheese. I can tell you that one works on a number of levels. We're getting some great comments here too. So,
yeah, we are.
oh my gosh, I want this pairing. I have this drizzled with some local thistle honey and black lava cashews.
Oh, wow.
Master right there.
Candy corn.
Ooh,
Very unique.
Spirit. Horseradish mustard and pork rillettes. Yep. A little bit Gouda-ish. Yep. Cranberries. Another classic Wisconsin pairing right there.
Yep.
We do have a lot of, we have questions about the individual cheeses too. I can bludgeon Tony with those right now if you want.
Sure, that's
as
fine.
we're going along. Let's see. So Christine wants to know, what is the ratio of milks in the Triple Play? It's a good question.
Oh, if I told you, then no. I can only I can only tell you that we keep the goat milk on the low end just because we don't want that to overpower everything else. So it's a higher ratio of cow and sheep, a lower one of goat. Other than that, I can't give you the percentages. That's our own.
I feel that I feel like the sheep milk does have a little bit of sort of an assertiveness to it because of the coating in the mouth. It's a wonderful cheese.
Thank you.
I guess on that note, you probably won't tell us what the cultures are either, will you?
Yeah.
I can tell you one of them is a Hanson C950. The other two I won't tell you.
All right.
But that's the main starter. But the other two that give some other flavors, I keep to myself.
You gotta put those cards close to your chest.
What's that?
You gotta keep those close to your chest.
That's right. That's right.
Exactly.
Yes.
Awesome. So next up, so I was a little torn here on which one to taste next. I think Cheddar is going to probably be the most robust flavor profile. So would you pair that one last, or would you do the blue cheese last? Because that's traditionally where I go finish.
I would do the blue cheese last, actually, myself.
Yeah.
But
I think it's a better idea. Just so that the blue isn't overpowering cheddar at the end. Even if the cheddar's got extra flavor, the blue can overpower that. So I would go with the 15 next.
Okay.
So like I said, we make a lot of cheddars 1 year up to 20 year. We've We make some orange, some white. About 70% of our production on cheddars is orange and about 30% is white.
Mhm.
In the Midwest, orange is the dominant, and towards the East Coast, white is the dominant. West Coast, either way, more of them seem to like the orange, but we sell about as much either way on that. But
Mm.
with the 15-year, I mean, each age, each year gets a little more flavor. As it gets from 3 to 5 year old, it gets more acidic, acidic bite to it. After that, it starts smoothing out and getting more of the calcium lactate crystals to it. So as it goes along, you'll see in the 10-year, you got a lot. When you get to the 15, you typically get quite a bit. The 20-year, it's a lot of crystals. But
Mhm.
you'll notice a lot of crystals in this. It isn't as much of an overpowering cheese as you would think it would be. It starts smoothing out, so it's really got a nice, almost creamy flavor to it.
Mhm.
It's definitely much like softer, creamier than I was anticipating. Like I was
Yeah.
expecting that would have that really like crystalline structure of like a super aged Gouda or something, but
Right,
Mhm.
right. Yep, it isn't as dry. And when we make our cheddars, ours aren't bandage wrapped. You could never age it that long, when you're air curing something, maybe 2 to 3 years, and you'd be almost hard as a rock. But
Mhm.
all of our cheeses, other than the blues, and partially because of making blue in the same plant, all of our other cheeses are sealed in a 40-pound long hold bag. So these keep, sitting in a sealed bag all of their life until they're cut down once we decide to cut them and sell them. And when we do cut a 40-pound block of the 15-year, typically we've only lost about a pound to a pound and a half away out of 43 pounds. So the moisture is still there. The creaminess is still there. It hasn't dried down to a real hard consistency.
so when you set out to make like a super aged cheddar, do you like when you're in the vat, are you like, today I'm making 10-year cheddar or today I'm making 15-year cheddar? Or do you taste batches as they age and think, oh,
Yes.
this one's got this one's got the legs to go the distance?
Right.
Okay.
So we use the same recipe on every vat of cheddar, but naturally every vat's a little different because of different milk, different, the cows are out on different grass, or it's December, January, and they're in the barn being fed hay that was put up during the summer. So all of that has an effect on the flavor, and the weather has an effect on the flavor. So, each of our batches is made with the same recipe, but it's going to turn out a little bit different. So as these age, I'll have a sample block and I'll plug it typically once or twice a year to make sure it's developing like I want. And if there's any hint of anything off, it's time to sell it at that point. It isn't going to age and get better. It probably will age and start showing those off flavors that you don't want. About 70 to 75% of what we produce would probably easily be able to age to 10 years. But the main sales are between 2 and 5 years. So by the time it gets to 5, about 75%, 70% of the cheese has been sold.
Well, I'm prepared to try this with a cognac. I'm just gonna say it's got that. It's already
Right.
boozy, but I think let's give it its due.
Right. It would go very well.
Mm-hmm.
I paired it with quince and apple's orange marmalade. So they're company here in Wisconsin in Madison, and the acidity of the marmalade and the acidity of the cheese together will like almost give you a mouth pucker. I mean, and I think there's a lot of sort of latent tropical fruit notes in the cheddar itself, and so
Yes.
I think the marmalade also has a little bit of lemon in it, I think, and I like it really highlights those fruity notes, but acidity together at the end will make you go like, it's quite robust. But
the typical cheese, typical pairing, of course, with cheddar is apples, and a nice apple with this would go very well, but just one of those things. Apples and cheddar always go well together.
Mhm. Absolutely. Tony, what's the oldest cheddar you've ever tasted?
The oldest I've tasted is 24-year-old. I don't have any volume to sell of that. That's just some stuff I've had in my refrigerator. My son, I think, has some in his fridge that's 25. So I'll have to tell him he's got to break into it at Christmas time. We'll have to see what
Very cool. All right, so the blue cheese is up next, right?
Right, right.
Okay.
So we do make 7 different kinds of blue cheese. The one you have in front of you is the You Calf to Be Kidding. That's the mixture of the sheep, the cow, and the goat. Again, just like the triple play, I can't give away secrets. But it is a very good combination. When we make our sheep milk blue, the little boy blue, you get a lot of sweetness just on the sheep, kind of like a true Roquefort. But this one is a very good combination with all 3 milks, and you get the different flavors in there. And of course, a good pairing with blue is usually honey, but pears also pair well with blue.
So I paired this with these airport snacks that I had laying around. It's like a snack mix. I can't even pronounce the name of it. Sahale maybe, but they sell them at like every airport kiosk. And I just miss traveling so much that I now buy airport snacks for myself to eat at home. But this one in particular is a pineapple rum cashew coconut. And I thought, well, that would be interesting with blue cheese. Blue cheese tends to be very high in lactones, which is an aroma compound that causes almost that like cooling effect that you sometimes get from blue cheese on your palate, but really lends itself to that creamy texture and mouthfeel. And coconut is also super high in lactone. So I've always found that coconut and blue cheese can be a really fun pairing. And who doesn't like to throw some rum into the mix as well? So for me.
So somebody's paired it with Madeira and curried nuts, which I think that's interesting. Curry with cheese, period, is really interesting.
Yes, yes.
All right, let's see if there's some other questions that we want to throw at you while we're sitting here.
Well, I have a question. So Tony, I know when we talked last week, you kind of already answered this for me, but this was so interesting. I think you kind of mentioned it during the presentation as well, but I would love to hear more about your patron farms, the farmers that you work with. And I was really surprised to hear some of their normal practices seem so outdated in today's modern world of like high-tech dairying. And so I just wanted to hear a little bit more from you about that.
Sure. Yes, we have very small dairy farmers. We get very good quality milk from them and pay them a premium price just to keep them in business, because it's pretty hard to run just a 50 cow dairy and keep operating these days. So the biggest one we have is 50 cows. They're all small family farms. Some of them have been in their families for up to 8 generations. The others, 3 and 4 generations, 5 generations. So small farms, a couple of them are my age, but their sons are coming on board. One of them just started with his dad last year. He had a different job and started working with his dad last year. One of the sons actually drives milk truck for my milk hauler, and he's helping his dad and hoping to take over his father's farm. So yeah, we have very small farms. Typically, the biggest has, I believe, 180 acres. Mostly Holsteins. One farmer has a few Jerseys, but mainly Holstein cows. And the ones that we do have produce more milk now than when we started at Buck Grove, but we have a lot less producers. At that time, we had 10, now we have 3. Most of the others have retired from farming. One just retired from dairy farming and just went to beef farming. But, they're, like I had mentioned, they're all very small family farms.
I think the thing that surprised me was that they all pasture their cows to some degree, and that they all put up dry hay. That was the thing that you told me that I was like,
Right. So yeah, all from usually around May 1st until right around this time period, mid-October to November 1st, depending on when the snow decides to start flying like it did yesterday. Luckily, we didn't get much. But they'll have the cows out on pasture, and then they have probably over half the farm is put up in crops, so they'll put up dry hay, and typically during the winter they're getting dry hay as about 70 to 75% of their feed ration. And the hay they do feed the dairy cows in the winter is the stuff that was the best that they put up. Typically something that may have gotten rained on or something like that is saved for the either the dry cows or the heifers coming up, the young stock coming up. So they try to save all of the good feed. And none of ours feed true chopped corn silage. They do feed corn, chopped corn, but no corn silage. So I know for like Emmentaler for Swiss cheese, that's one thing you prefer not to have because you get late blowing on Swiss if you use too much silage or poor silage. But this is one thing that works very well for us, that they don't put up any corn silage.
that's awesome. So yeah, anybody in the audience, I don't know how many of you have made hay before, but it takes typically like 3 to 4 days of continuous sunshine in the field in order for hay to dry without risking fermentation once it's baled. So Wisconsin gets, I believe, an average of 90 days of sunshine a year, and most of those are, aggregated in the summer months. But it can be sort of a tricky proposition to do hay the old school way here because there's, just often the weather doesn't cooperate with you. So it's really cool. And exactly like Tony mentioned, having all the microflora involved in the fermentation process in the environment, which, once feed is ambient in the environment, it's going to be on the cow and get into the milk. It can cause some like rogue blowing issues for certain styles of cheese in particular. So working with non-fermented feeds can be really important to a cheesemaker depending on the styles of cheese making. So I found that very interesting to hear that your farmers still subscribe to those sort of what we would think of as almost more like old school methods.
Right.
Can I leap in here with a question that came early on, which is actually one that I have as well, which is what are the inspirations for all your new cheeses? And Tony, I had no idea you made so many different cheeses, despite how many American Cheese Councils, conferences that we've been at together. I did not know. So
right. I've just always got something in my mind of, oh, I should try this or try that. So in a year's time, we might try to make 3, 4, 5 different types of things, very small vats of them, and doesn't always necessarily work out, or we think it does work out, but it really doesn't sell very well. So yeah, it's just something we play with different starter cultures, read about different types of cheeses, and try to either mimic them or try to play around with that recipe and develop something new. So it's kind of fun, up until 2001, when we were just making commodity cheeses, let's say, we didn't have the time. It was just Julie and I, and busting your hump just to pay all the bills. And when you can charge a little bit more for your product and make a profit that is a little more reasonable, you can get out there and play the game of, oh, let's try something new. So it's kind of been fun the last several years.
Have you ever tried A raw milk cheese? Tried to make a raw milk
We
cheese?
we have, but just because of FDA's issues, we try to stay away from it. I
Mhm.
know we have gotten better flavors on some of those, but with all the extra hype that they put on that, we just try to stay away from. You have enough issues in a dairy plant. You don't need to worry about them coming in and complaining about everything else. So, I'm not trying to blame FDA, but, they do kind of put a damper on some of those things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a lot of risk for a small company to bear, for sure.
Molly, do you want to ask another one of your questions?
Oh, well, I just wanted to hear, like, what does the future look like for Hook's Cheese Company? It sounds like you've got some, some great stuff going on, having your family involved in the business, but what's
Right. So at this point, our children have their own businesses. Our son's a veterinarian and has his own vet shop, and our daughter's a cosmetologist, has her own beauty shop. And so they've got their own businesses. But the nieces and nephews that are working for me, at least one of the nephews is planning on eventually buying us out, and it could be a couple of the nephews that plan on stepping in. One of them already has his cheesemaker's license, his pasteurizer license. I've got him trained for PCQI, quality control, all those types of things. So that's kind of, I'm not getting any younger, as they say, right? But
Mhm.
I'm planning on staying in it for a few more years at least. It's still fun.
Mhm.
I agree that working in the cheese industry it's the funnest industry, right? Like there can't be one that's more fun than this because
And everybody seems to get along. You know what I mean? Somebody has a little problem with this or that, you can ask other people questions and, what did you do for this? Yeah. So,
Mhm.
and, there's so much help out there, especially in Wisconsin. We have such a support group. So, yeah, it's great.
agreed. I think that's one of the best parts about our industry is like the way that cheesemakers who you would think would be competitors or who are outright competitors in the marketplace, behind the scenes have a real camaraderie and, kind of affinity and desire to help each other. It's very cool.
Right.
Hey, Tony, Pamela wants to know if you have a holy grail cheese that you have not yet made that you would like to make.
No, I've got one that I've been thinking about, but I won't really discuss it at this time. If it doesn't come to fruition, I would
Mm.
rather not mention it. But there's always a few things in my head.
And is there a cheese that you made that's surprised you with its popularity?
Well, I don't know if I would say surprised, but the triple play itself, has been very popular, and it
Mhm.
is such a great cheese. When we first made it, I don't think we expected that it would go over as well as it has, but a lot of people really love it.
Mhm.
And the blues, we've been having fun with those, and they've been going over very well. And I don't know of anybody else that has a mixed belt blue in the nation, but maybe there are some of them that do.
Yeah, how are there lots of people that make 3 milk cheeses? Because I can think of maybe a couple more, but
Yeah, I know Sid, Car Valley does.
Mm.
I don't know if does Sartori only do a 2 milk or possibly a 3, Molly? Do you know?
I don't know.
I don't know for sure. I know Sartori does use some sheep and some goats, so they may have a 3 milk also.
Mhm.
But I don't know very many.
Mhm. And for the downer question of today, has COVID impacted? How has COVID impacted your business?
Well, naturally, it has impacted it since up until March. About 70% of our production was going to small distributors that were selling to restaurants, and we all know how that went.
Yeah.
But a lot of the retail has picked up in a big way, and we have picked up some new customers that are retail, and some of the restaurant stuff has come back.
Mm.
Much of the stuff in California that is just restaurants have started ordering in the last 2.5 months,
Mm-hmm.
coming back on. Now, California shouldn't have as big a problem in the winter as some of us will, but yeah, it's affected us. Our store itself, we don't actually open to the public. We have a sales room at the factory that's typically open when we're making cheese, Monday through Friday. Typically, we tell people 8 till 2, but we're there 6 till 2 or a lot earlier. But you don't get too many customers at 4 in the morning. But we haven't opened the shop. So what we typically do, we do curbside. So if anybody wants to order, we'll have them pay with a credit card and we'll set it out on the table. They can pick it up. And then every Friday, because we make cheddar for sure on Fridays, so that we have curd for the farmers market on Saturday. Plus, people in town have always expected it on Fridays. So we make cheddar on Fridays. And once the curd is ready, I actually set my tent up out in our parking lot and start selling out there. And that's been working very well since Memorial Day. I sell probably twice as much curd every week now on Fridays than I used to, just because the tent is so visible and we're on a very busy corner there. But, you know, everybody keeps asking me what I'm going to do when it gets colder. I haven't decided. I wear a parka and still set up my tent. I'm not sure. We're still not planning on opening the shop until we can, you know, things are better. Just don't want.
Are you actually standing? I'm sorry. Are you actually the person standing there at the booth?
I am. Yep.
I love that.
Everybody else has to stay in the factory and work, and I get to go outside and. Now in the summer I get to say I get to, but in the winter,
Yeah.
do I want to make myself? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I'm planning on it.
I mean, this is Wisconsin. You gotta stack
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
Tony, Andrea would like to know how Hooks was the 10-year when you launched that, how it was accepted by the industry, since it was really sort of a first.
It was a first. I think we released it in 1999, and that particular cheese won first place at ACS in 2006. I think that's the oldest cheddar that's ever won first place. But it was very well received, you know, as we got the word out there, and it is still a very big seller. I mean, it's gained sales year over year every year. So, I mean, the 10-year was very well received. I don't think people saw it coming, but once it was released, people loved it.
Mm-hmm. We have lots. I mean, there was so many questions coming in, so I'm like doing my best to stay on top of it.
I want Tony to be able to answer this one for Jason. Tony told me this last week and I can't remember the answer, but where are the blues aged in your facility?
So we've got 4 caves. I think I sent a picture of the cheese factory to you, but I don't have that up on this computer. We're built into a big hill. Southwest Wisconsin is all rolling hills. It was unglaciated. The last glacier went through, it missed the driftless region of Wisconsin. So the southwest corner of Wisconsin has a lot of huge rolling hills. In fact, the last glacier went through 2 glaciers ago, went through about 1 million years ago, and that one missed the same area. But the rolling hills of Wisconsin, so we're in a very hilly town. Our factory is built into the hill. So cave number 1 is actually 16 foot underground, even though it is part of the building itself. That one, we don't have to add any moisture or refrigeration in the wintertime because it is truly a cave. But that one also doesn't have a drain in it. So when we first started making blues, that's what we were using, but you'd have to empty it every 3 weeks and clean it out, put it back. So we've built 3 more caves down along the wall. The outside wall is still against dirt. but they are all exposed to the cheese factory. Their rooms in the make room or in the factory. Cave number 3 and cave number 4 are now used as the blue curing rooms while the blue is developed. Once it's developed, they're brought out, the cheeses are sealed loosely in a bag and then put in a tote and put in the cold storage to age. So once they're blue enough, after about 3 or 4 weeks, we'll bring them out on a day we're not making a block cheese. We'll seal them loosely and put them in that tote, put them in the cold storage, age them for about a year. The only blue we don't age for a year is typically the Blue Paradise. The double cream will break down faster, so we usually age that about 6 months. All of the others we typically try to cure about a year. But yeah, the caves are built right into, you could say, into the hill there. Cave number 3 and 4 are down right by the make room. So we can wash those down every day right to the drain, keep them real humid. When we do make a batch of blue, we put it on bread racks, put it in the cave. We'll bring them out about 4 days later and pierce them because the blue mold itself has been added to the vat, just like the starter culture. So when you pierce it, you're just giving it oxygen to let it grow, the mold to grow. Once it gets air, it can start developing. Put it back in the cave. We put a bag over each stack of bread racks. And when it's first in there, the first day, we made blue today, when we put those in there tomorrow, for about a day, day and a half, they'll temper down to that 53 to 55 from 80, 85 in the make room. And there'll be a lot of moisture inside of those bags. They'll really be kind of sweating. Then they'll dry down. And after the blue starts developing in about 2.5 to 3 weeks, the moisture will start coming. You'll see it in the bags again. You really know that the blue is growing. So we'll cut a wheel in half, test it, see that it's blue enough, and then that's when we'll bring those out.
My friend Meredith wants to know if you've ever made a cloth bound cheddar.
I have not. I have helped Willie Lanier make, so I have not made any myself.
Mhm.
Now, I've helped make cloth bound. I mean, Emmentaler, the 200-pound wheels. When I first started in Barneveld, we made some because that's what Bill used to make, was the big kettle Swiss. He had 10 kettles when he moved to Barneveld. I know Molly asked, "You really make cheese in a kettle?" I said, "Yep, that's what they always used to do." You know, older Swiss cheesemakers, and most people that make Emmentaler or Swiss prefer to make it in copper. You do get some flavor from that copper in the Swiss style cheeses like Gruyere, Emmentaler. So that's why, like Emmy Roth asked for, to be able to put in copper vats, and Bruce Workman at Edelweiss has a copper vat kettle for his Swiss cheese.
So we've actually passed our hour mark here. I can't tell you how much lovely it is to hear from you, Tony, and it makes me long for the days that we all be able to get together again. So anyway, thank you so much. Please give us a sort of last thoughts as we.
Oh, well, everybody enjoy cheese. Eventually we'll get over this, get through this. So
Yep. Yeah.
If you need to, I'm willing to stay longer and answer questions, but you've probably set it at an hour. So.
Yeah, I think we might have a couple of questions that have been unanswered, and we'll jot those down and I can help facilitate a response between you and the participants as well from here, so people can sign off. It's probably getting towards dinner time and out on the East Coast at least. So
yeah,
right.
Yeah, awesome. Well, yeah, huge thanks to Counterculture for bringing us all together today. It's been wonderful to see so many familiar names and faces on our at our event. And yeah, Tony, a huge thanks to you. This is such a treat to have just sort of like a behind the scenes conversation with Tony Hook. So
exactly.
Hope other people are fangirling as hard as I am right now, because this is just, sometimes I can't believe this gets to be real life. How exciting.
Well,
Okay,
thank-
we're gonna,
thank-
we'll
thank
be
you.
sending you, thank you. So we'll be sending you, all the participants, a follow-up questionnaire, which we hope you'll answer. We are always trying to improve these, and come on back. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye now.